Hello everybody, welcome back to Rooted and Flourishing, the podcast between Rooted and Sound and the Flourish Group. Welcome back, Nikki.
Thanks.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
Yeah, so we were going to talk about the 12 pillars or the 12 areas of wellness, what wellness really looks like.
Yeah. So in the our last episode, I referenced it started with, I think, like 8 dimensions. And then I knew there were 2 more dimensions of wellness or pillars of wellness that were, kind of widely acknowledged, in the wellness community. So now we've got 12. I'm going to quiz you, or I'm going to ask you if you can name all 12 of them, because it's a lot. And then we're going to talk about what some of these look like, and why are they wellness, right? Because it's not maybe what you think. So, all right, see if you can.
So I'm going to try to do it without looking at the cheat sheet first. Okay, so we have creativity.
Okay.
We have career.
Mm-hmm.
We have education.
Mm-hmm.
We have health.
Mm-hmm.
We have home environment.
Mm-hmm.
We have home cooking. We have relationships, social life. We have joy and spirituality, and finances.
There's one more.
There's one more. Home environment, health, home cooking. I'm trying to remember the quadrants. I said creativity already, right? Creativity. Yeah, I'm missing one.
And it's going to be so ironic. It's physical activity.
Physical activity, that's right.
And that's what we all think wellness is, right? And you and I know, differently, and you're thinking of all these other things because they're so important to a person's well-being. But yeah, I thought that was funny. Yeah. The last one was physical activity, and that's what most people assume when I say I do workplace wellness programs. They're like, oh, you bring fitness classes into, sure, I can do that.
Right.
But I can also bring sound baths and meditation and all those things. Yeah. So, yeah.
It's really interesting. In the program that I went through at school, and then also the way that I coach, is we were taught that there's primary food and then there's secondary food.
Okay.
Everything we put in our mouth is secondary food.
Oh.
And these 12 aspects of life are our primary food.
Yeah.
And if we feed ourselves with, creativity and finances and career and all these different aspects of our life, and we make sure that those are balanced, everything we put in our food will be the right thing.
Yeah.
Every food we put in our mouth will be the right thing.
Right.
Because our focus on life, we are just much more thoughtful and mindful about what we do when things are balanced.
Yeah, I love that. What's not on there, but I think is an important aspect, and maybe it's represented somewhere, but recently people have been talking about digital wellness.
Oh, yeah.
So how connected we are to our devices, what it's doing to not only our mental health, but just the focus, the creativity. We were talking about AI before we started doing this. So digital wellness is one that I've started to put together the beginnings of a workshop for corporations, because we are supposed to be, when you're working, connected all the time, right? And COVID made it so, you didn't leave your house, a lot of people, right? And so there were no boundaries. And so this whole idea of being constantly connected is such an impact on our health.
They did studies quite a while ago, actually, on TV. And they found that watching TV allows our brain to just fall in between the active brain state and the relaxed brain state. And it's just above the relaxed, like right on the line, but really just above the relaxed brain state. And what was so fascinating to me about that was that the TV makes us feel like we're relaxing, but that's why when we get up from the TV, we still feel tired. It's
right.
And I would just imagine, and I don't know of any studies for scrolling yet, but I can imagine that it would be the same idea.
Yeah.
I mean, I know sometimes I'll feel like I'm vegging out, doom scrolling or watching YouTube news, and I'm like, I'm just numbing out and this isn't working.
Yes. In one of my workshops, I talk about, in terms of resilience, like, what are you feeding? And I use that analogy. What are you feeding your mind? Who are you surrounding yourself with? And, it doesn't matter, what the news is about, but having this constant stream of news, right? We used to have to wait, we're going to age ourselves. We had to wait till 6 p.m. news or the paper coming out in the morning before we got our news. And I think that is just that barrage of constant news and constant information, and not always good information, and the age of influencers and how they impact. We'll have to do a whole podcast on that. But yeah, I mean, I think it's really, and you're saying like just a regular TV show. Now we're watching true crime, and we're, so we get up from the couch and we're tired and we're anxious and we have trouble falling asleep, even though it was a really good show. Now I'm tossing and turning, thinking about, Dateline.
And, it's kind of interesting to me because there's that expression, garbage in, garbage out. And I feel that is very true, whether it's in what we eat, whatever we digest mentally, all of those things. And it really, also the way that we would take in the news. You had mentioned the newspaper. There's a separation from us and the information when we read. When we're reading something, there are words we're taking in, and they may use, words with a lot of expression in order to... But it's very different than watching a news anchor start yelling about something. So the intensity of the way we take in our news is vastly different than the way we used to.
Yeah, and it gives you, I feel like, print media, it gives you like the opportunity to like put it down, because you can't walk around with a newspaper on, right? Like we have our, I'll be cooking dinner and have something, I'm watching or listening to in the background. With some of that traditional media, you have to put it down. You have to step away from it. And we just don't have that. And in the workplace, it truly is, when do I set a boundary on when I'm going to respond to emails, when I'm, logging in the morning, or, people. I remember during COVID, I had a neighbor and a good friend, and we would walk every day. Like we were just like, let's get out of the house, get in the fresh air. And so we'd walk the neighborhood. She would have to constantly, and I won't say what company it was, but she would have to make sure her team's light, like, so it's green if you're online, it's yellow if you've been away for a couple of minutes, and then it's red if you've just been away, right? And as we were walking, she would have to go in and like interact somehow with teams so it would turn green again. I was like, this is so bad for your health. This is, while you're walking, doing something good for your health, you are damaging your mental health. Like there were no boundaries with that in that example, but we all do it. I mean, it's like a joke, running joke, like keep your teams on green so that, your boss thinks you're working. On the flip side of that, the person who is monitoring that's not good for your mental health. To be constantly monitoring who is doing what and not having trust in your employees, and not, I mean, there are a whole host of things that are impacting people's well-being when they have that culture. Like we talked about before, the culture is really everything.
I know a woman that was worked for a forensic department for a police station as an administrative assistant, and doing all that research for them, and she had a mental breakdown.
Yeah,
had to leave. It's
it's real.
Yeah, it really is.
It's real. So which one of these do you feel like, I don't know, which one do you feel like you need to work on? Where do you?
No, that's a good question. I would say, it changes from day to day, and it changes from hour to hour.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah. And I work with a coach as well. And, for me, the two places where I find, well, there's really 3-4 places where I bebop the most. And that's around finances, around relationships, physical activity, are kind of those points in which I'm always, with a little bit of spirituality there, but those are the points in which I'm always making sure that I'm putting a little more attention. I do this every so often, or I have my clients do. We have this pie chart, and you kind of put where you are, like 1 to 10. And the idea is not to have 10s and everything. The idea is just to see where you're a little out of balance. Where am I putting all of my energies, and where am I not putting any of my energy? Where do I need to shift? Maybe pull away here a little here, and a little energy. And to me, the more I evaluate what I'm doing, the more I'm becoming closer to center. And I think that's pretty important. I think it is important for my clients too, to really just check in. There are moments when my career, my finances are going to take priority. And then there are moments where I need to be like, am I just putting too much energy into this? And do I need to worry about my, home life?
Yeah.
Do I need to worry about my, I love the way that they talk about it being physical activity and not exercise.
Exercise, yep.
Right?
Same.
Yeah. I do not like going to the gym. And running, both of those activities that most people do for exercise. Yep. I'm sure I have some kind of childhood trauma around it.
We all do.
Right.
Yeah.
So that doesn't work for me. But what I did find working with a coach, and this was a few years ago, I love to paddleboard.
And that is no joke.
Right.
That's exercise. I mean, that's tough.
And those activities, it's in the middle of the winter right now, and I'm not getting as much as I need.
Right.
I can tell too.
Right.
Winter blues, but as soon as it's warm enough for me to get on a boat, I'm out there 3 times a week, and with a little hiking on the side.
Yeah.
And what I feel, and those activities for me are not just about the physical activity. A lot of it is, but there's also that spiritual connection. When I'm in the wilderness or on a river or a lake, and there's wildlife around me, and I'm seeing fish underneath me, there's just this the spiritual connection, the joy, the physical activity. I always pack a little bit of food, make sure I'm healthy. All those things all kind of congeal in that environment for me.
It does.
I have creative thoughts.
Yes.
What I want to do with the business will come to me. All of this stuff just kind of happens in that environment. When I don't do that, I feel it. I can tell a week or two, when I haven't taken care of that, and I'm like, I need to, because I can't do what I do without it.
Yeah, that is so true. And it's so, just recently, so last week, I had 3 events all on the same day in completely different space, like places, locations. And one, I'll never do that again. lesson learned. As a small business owner, you're like, sure, I can do that. Sure, I can do that. I'll never do that again. But what happened was, because of the events and the planning and all this, I exercised, I did physical activity one time. I typically 4 to 5 times a week I do something. I don't run, but I love to walk. Like, walking is one of my favorite things. And to your point about creativity, like the number of, and sometimes they make no sense later, but the number of like notes that I have in my phone, because I'm like, oh, this would be a great idea. So I love to walk. Well, on the weekend, I was so exhausted physically and mentally from these 3 events on Friday that I couldn't really do anything, right? We had something, we went for a friend's birthday, but other than that, like, I had 0 energy. And so Monday came and I was like, okay, we need to get back at this. And so got on the treadmill and started walking. And now, Wednesday, I had 2 days in, and I'm like, it really does make a difference.
Yeah.
It really does. Like, and it doesn't have to be hard charging, HIIT workouts or, ultra marathons or whatever people think are these like, big goals in terms of exercise. A 20-minute walk.
Yeah.
We'll do it. A 20-minute stretching. I just need to find the right yoga class. I've not found one that I really love. But I love being on our stationary bike and, walking outside. So it's really just about finding what movement, like I like to refer to it as just movement, right? Like, get up and move. Go walk for 10 minutes. I don't care how many calories you burned. Right. It doesn't matter. Like, that's the least of the things that I think are important in getting that physical activity. Yeah.
I do have to say that 700 calorie burn an hour for paddleboarding was what sucked me in. But I do love it.
I can imagine. I think I tried once. We lived in North Carolina, and our very next door neighbors had a house at the beach, which are the best neighbors to have, by the way. And nice, nice people want to spend, and they would take us to the beach all the time. And their daughter, she was probably 11 at the time. She would get up on that paddleboard. The dog, they had a little Frenchie. The dog would be on the paddle, and she would just go. And I tried it once, and I was like, oh my God. Like, the balance and the stability and the core strength that you need to have to do that. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is not easy at all. She made it look easy. Yeah. It was not easy. So I can see where.
So let's talk about some of these areas of wellness. I'm a big component of spiritual activity. And
how do you define that?
See, that's what I was just going to say, because a lot of people think of spirituality as religion.
Yes.
And religion can be a vehicle to spirituality, yes, but it is not spirituality.
I'm a recovering Catholic.
Yeah.
So that's if I had to say there's one that I struggle with, it's that, because I still associate spirituality with organized religion. Yeah. And it gives me, it's not something I'm really interested in or connected to any longer. And if that's what people like, more power to you. But yeah, so go ahead. Yeah, that's my thing, my struggle.
Yeah, spirituality is actually connection. Mm-hmm. It's a feeling connected to the planet, feeling connected to community. There's every religion in the world has a congregation of people coming together. Even when we get into paganism, they have their little groups that get together. And in Christianity, there's, the scripture, and I'm going to watch it a little bit, but, where 2 people gather together, then God's presence is with them. So it's the idea that it's all about connection. And we can use our belief system from childhood in order to connect, or we can create brand new connections. What I typically do with clients is find out what was their belief system? What is their belief system? What is their trauma around it? And then we can really start to come up with a practice that is in alignment with them. I mean, I can give people practices. I was given all kinds of different practices growing up. I grew up in a Christian cult. And I was an ordained minister through the Christian cult.
Oh, wow.
So I
more to come on that.
Yeah.
I want to hear more about that.
So I went way down that Christian rabbit hole whenever I was younger in life. But something that really works for me is when I'm struggling with something that I have no control over, and I'm very fearful around it. I just write it down in the morning, and then I light it on fire and watch the smoke go up in the air, and know that I don't know what's out there.
Yeah.
But it's got it.
Yeah.
Because I can't do anything about it.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And so that allows me to take it off my plate.
Right. And there's a lot of power in that. I tell people, at night, I always say, get it out of your head before bed.
Yeah.
Like, just write it down. If it's going to keep you up, write it down. If you wake up at 2 a.m. because it's on your mind, write it down at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Like, just get it out of your head. So on the spirituality thing, so I loved being part of a church growing up. I liked it. There was always like the church festival in the summer, and like there was this community component to it. For various reasons, got away from it. And now, I love the idea of connection. So my mother passed away the fall of 2024. And it has been the most devastating thing that's ever happened to me. It was very sudden, it was very unexpected, and just fast. It just happened. It was 12 days. And I feel like I'm not connected because people keep saying, oh, she'll send you signs. I don't know that I'm like, where? Like, what is that sign? I haven't seen a lot of, like, there are things that remind me of her, or, I see her, like I see people who look like her all the time. And people have said, well, that's a sign. But I feel like people actually have like somebody will say, oh, my dad collected pennies. And I find pennies everywhere when nobody uses pennies anymore. I'm like, oh, that's a really interesting sign, right? Yeah. So I'm right now in this season of life, I'm struggling with that because I'm like, why can't I see it? Like, where is she? Yeah. And then it makes me very skeptical, right? Where I'm like, nothing happens after you're gone. You're just gone.
There's a phrase that meditation is when we listen to God, source, loved ones, but prayer is when we talk. Prayer is the ask, the meditation is the listen or the answer. And how often do you talk to your mom?
It's a good question. I mean, I don't know that I actually verbalize. I do. There's times where and it's not that I'm angry at her. I'm kind of angry at the world, right? And I'm like, why aren't you here? Like, why? This is stupid, right? And so I don't know that I actually have conversations with her, and maybe I need to try that, but it's been very interesting to just feel like you're just kind of not connected, right? And I do other things that, I'm very involved in nonprofit work, and I'm very involved in I'm a very empathetic person. I feel everyone else's stuff, and I just feel like, why do I feel disconnected from this? Why can't I see these signs, right? Then I'm also type A. So I'm like, why am I not seeing the signs? Like, people said I'd see signs. Where are they? Because I'm like, I want to know where. So so that's my thing right now, is when I think about spirituality, I'm trying to distance it from this practice, this very kind of rigid practice of religion. And what does that mean? Like, what does spirituality mean to me?
Yeah.
Because it's not one thing. It's
No,
not one
it's
size
not.
fits all. And I'm like, why can't I figure this out?
Yeah. You know, there's, I think the best example that I can think of is 12-step recovery.
Mm-hmm.
Because the 12-step recovery organizations, they're spiritual programs,
Right.
but they're not religious.
Right.
So they have these 12 steps in which you go through and you change the way that you think, and you do things like you start to pray even if you don't believe in it. And what you see is, and I know atheists that go through this program and are still atheists.
Right.
But they do the things and they see the changes and they stay sober. And, and again, we're talking about connection. So all these people, right, they have this same thing that they can believe and understand.
Right.
They all get together on a regular basis. They
Right.
share their thoughts and feelings. We should connection,
Yeah.
right? Then they leave that, and then they have these practices that allow them to feel more connected in their regular everyday life as
Right.
well.
Yeah.
It's all about the connection. So however we choose to or relate with that connection, I do believe that that's really, I have not seen this in Pittsburgh. I would like to see this in Pittsburgh. But in a lot of other places, the sound baths become people's churches. They come in here, they experience something, they stick around, they have some tea,
I love that. I would go to that church.
Right.
After experiencing a sound bath,
Yeah.
I would go to that church. I would.
And I really try to encourage that sense of community within the group. I haven't found the secret sauce for Pittsburgh yet.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Maybe we can get that going.
Yeah.
So yeah, that and finances, because who likes finances?
Right.
And you have to when you're a business owner, right? Like P&L, I was like, oh, what is that?
Right.
But now I look forward to it. I found a really good bookkeeper and somebody who can explain things. And I think that's the other part of this, right? Like education, opening yourself up to saying, I'm not good at this. And it's hard for people sometimes as we get older to ask for help. And so once I found the right person to help me with my finances, I wasn't embarrassed that I didn't know this, or I didn't have any shame around money. I was like, oh, okay, that's simple. I understand it, right? But that's also one that I'm always working on, always.
I don't remember who the person was, but in school around finances, the advice was to ask yourself, are the things that you're spending money on bring you joy? Because if it's not bringing you joy, why are you spending money on it?
Right.
We think about the subscriptions that we throw away for, TV or all the different things that we are all subscribed to these days. How often are we using it, and does it bring us joy? And that's been one of the best pieces of advice for me whenever I think of finances.
I have a friend who says, if you're going to buy something, invest in the best possible version of whatever that is. Shoes, a coat, a sweater. The discussion was around clothing. But, the world has made it really easy to just get a cheap, sweater on Amazon and it's there the next day, right?
Yeah.
This whole idea of fast fashion. And my daughter does some vintage clothing, like upcycling. And she said the same thing, it's looking for the highest quality. And yeah, you might pay a little bit more, but are you going to have that in 10 years? Versus the trendy, cheap $19.99 blouse that you bought that you won't. and then it just ends up in a landfill, and then, you know, that's a
It
whole
is.
other, you know, nightmare. But
Yeah.
somebody said, like, you know, stop and think about, like, what is the, you know, how long do I want to have this? And do I need to invest a little bit more to get something that will last?
It's interesting. I very much so did the same thing. And a few years ago, whenever someone else said to me too, you know, instead of having a ton of different things, just have a few good quality.
Mm-hmm.
And I started buying some better quality clothing. And I spend way less today on clothing than I did back then.
Mm-hmm.
And I wear the stuff all the time, and it feels so much better.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And the t-shirt I'm wearing under this is made out of hemp.
Oh, very cool.
So, you know, and
Yeah.
it feels good.
Right.
You know?
Right.
And so whatever that is for
Right.
each individual person.
Yeah. I remember the first, like, dress I bought for a job, and I went to Ann Taylor, and it was like the most I had spent on a dress ever, outside of maybe like my parents buying like a prom dress and or my wedding dress. But I went and I bought this dress. I kid you not, I had that dress for 15 years.
Yeah.
I finally had to get rid of it, like in, I think, probably the last 2 moves that we made. It was just wearing, you know, like the collar was literally like coming, it was, you know, threadbare. But I remember, and it, like, now by today's standards, you know, the $150 or whatever I spent on it would not be a big deal. But I love that dress, and it just was timeless. It was a black dress. It was, you know, I wore it to everything, and I got so much use out of it. So yes, so finances, always looking at what are we subscribing to, right? Like, to your point about TV kind of, you know, numbing us. We have so many streaming services, and I'm like, when is the last time we watched something on Paramount?
Right.
We have it. I don't know why we have it. Let's get rid of it. But yeah, that's something that I'm always working on.
You know, one of the other things that's on the list is creativity. And a lot of, you know, I have a lot of clients over the years that have come to me and have been like, you know, I'm just not creative. I don't have a creative bone in my body, particularly people that work with numbers. And I ask them, because another word, the word to substitute for creativity is play. How did you play as a kid?
Right, okay.
What were your favorite activities? You know, how did you really, and when we can tap into those energies, it keeps us younger.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And creativity is, if we can find some creativity in our life, and maybe it's not our job, maybe it's cooking.
Right.
In the way we cook.
Oh, yes, that's my outlet.
Yeah, maybe it's gardening.
Yeah.
Maybe it's, you know, painting or one of the
Right.
things that we think of as art.
Right.
But, just how do we incorporate creativity into our life? How do we also, you know, incorporate play into our life?
Yeah. I also think too, most people think creativity is that, like, artistic, you know, I'm musically inclined, or I'm artistic. I also think of creativity as problem solving.
Right. No,
right? Resilience. Like, somebody who maybe is the numbers person and thinks in their head, I am not creative. How many problems have you solved in a really creative way because you're so good at what you do? Right. And so if you reframe what creativity is, a lot of times it's solving problems. Yeah. It's sitting and thinking, oh wow, we've got this problem. What's a different way to solve it? Because we've tried all of these things and it didn't solve it. So how do we think differently? That's creativity. Yeah. And when people feel that at work, when they're given the space to do that, or, you know, they're asked to be part of that, that goes such a long way, right? Everybody wants to feel needed, wants to contribute. And so when you give them the opportunity to be creative, it goes a long way in terms of, you know, employee loyalty and retention and satisfaction. You know, I like my job. I got to do this today, you know, and I was the one who figured that out. right? So that's how I look at creativity too.
Yeah. You know, creativity is really just an expression of our passion.
Mm-hmm. Right, and numbers might be spreadsheets.
Right?
People might be
That
thinking
might be their
creative.
passion, right.
It makes me want to run for the hills, but for some people,
Yeah.
Excel spreadsheets are creativity,
Yeah.
and they are.
Yeah.
There's a woman on TikTok. I don't even know how I got on that side of TikTok, but there's a woman on TikTok who creates these beautiful spreadsheets with they're like graphically designed, like they're different colors, and she sells them. And I'm like, that's creative.
Yeah, right?
Right? Like this pink Barbie looking spreadsheet, I was like, what is this? But like, she has created something that some person who loves Excel, this gives them something different to look at, a little bit of joy, like you were saying. But I was like, wow. I mean, that's like the combination of art and I don't know, spreadsheets. It was really interesting, but that's creativity. Everybody's got it in them.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't want the pink Barbie spreadsheet.
Career is another thing that's on that list, and I think that's probably one of the two biggest things that I coach individuals on, around their career or around relationships.
Okay.
Sometimes it's relationships in their career.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, like you were talking about.
Yeah, so, we can go down a big rabbit hole about career and how that's so important. I think the most important thing is to make sure that you're the right fit for your position, and your position is the right fit for you.
Mm-hmm.
And
you're doing it because you want to, not because somebody's told you that's what you should do.
Right.
Like how many people end up in careers that, well, my dad did this, or I was expected to go to law school, or I was, my whole family are physicians, right?
Yeah.
And they're miserable and they don't want to do it and they're not great at it. So yeah, you're exactly right. Having good career health is so important to your mental health.
Yeah.
In particular.
And on that line is also education.
Yeah.
I find that most of my clients these days feel that they're pretty good with their education, because I'm usually working with individuals that are in their 40s and 50s, seem to be my biggest demographic.
Right.
And however, there are components that the education system doesn't teach us. Mm-hmm. And so finding out, I'm taking this class on intimacy coaching.
Oh.
And what that really looks like. And, there is so much that I'm learning. Just, as far as touch, we think that, intimacy around physical touch needs to look a particular way, but, just touching our own hand and feeling that sensation can bring us pleasure if we give ourselves a chance to really feel what that feels like.
Right.
Something so simple.
Right.
We just have to take the time to tap into it.
Right. And intimacy doesn't mean, it's not just, your physical partner, right?
No.
It's, your family, and it's connecting again. And I'm no expert on that, but, always looking for something. And this is probably more in the coaching field, where I feel like we're always looking for how else can I, what else can I bring to my clients? How else can I, expand my knowledge? To the point where sometimes it becomes like information paralysis, right? Like you could have 900 certifications because there's just so much out there. But that works so well in with what you're doing that seems just like a logical progression.
At every step of my path, and I'm pretty intentional about what I'm learning, but like when I decided to go for health and wellness coaching, I went to the Integrative Institute of Nutrition, changed the way I eat. it completely, so each of those steps that I have taken for my clients, I also feel, or I believe that I need to walk the walk if I'm going to talk the talk. So
Yep.
I have to live those principles in which I'm teaching. It's been, my life just keeps changing and blossoming.
Yeah.
And
It's flourishing.
it's flourishing.
Yeah.
So education can really bring us some joy. Health, I think, is a pretty easy, people are typically...
They grasp that,
Yeah,
I think, a little bit easier. But, there's still room to have conversations around mental health, emotional health,
Yes.
which people tend to lump those together. And, mental health is how it's the mind, right? Emotional health is the heart.
Yeah.
And so, emotional regulation, but also, how you take in information and how you react to it, right? That's mental health. That, how are you interpreting the world? How are you, again, protecting what being discriminate in what you're consuming, that kind of thing. But I think there's still room for education around that in the workplace. I think, people think mental health, they think somebody's had a breakdown, right? And that's mental health. We have to get them help. And, the EAP, we're going to help them, they're going to take a leave of absence, whatever that might be. But it's mental health in, how do I feel safe at work? Do I feel like I can say I'm struggling? Most people don't.
Yeah,
Most people do not feel safe enough. And, I've said that before in an audience of men, and I get some eye rolls. And then I bring it back to, can you connect psychological safety to physical safety? This was a construction audience. And I said, if your employees are struggling with mental health, physical health, addiction, whatever it might be, and they can't come to you or someone else because they don't feel safe and they feel like they're going to get, fired or written up, and then they do something on the job because they're distracted, stressed, sleep deprived, and someone gets hurt. That's the connection. And then they're like, oh, well, of course I would want Bob to tell me that, his wife left him and he is struggling and his kids, whatever. Or I want, Susan to say she's struggling with her finances and she needs some help. I wouldn't fire them for that. Like when you ask them that, like if somebody came to you and said, I'm struggling, I'm having a really hard time with this, this thing in my life, would you fire them? Well, no. But they aren't coming to you.
Right.
Because they feel they're nervous. They feel like they're going to be seen as weak, or that they can't do the job, or, whatever the stories are that they're, telling themselves. And so for me, in terms of like the work safety or the career wellness, like that's a big part of it, is being able to say, time out, I'm struggling and I need some help.
And I think a lot of employers sometimes don't know what to do with that.
Right.
Okay, I need some help. Well, okay.
Go see HR.
Yeah, right. Yeah, this isn't my problem. Yeah, and in some cases, that is true. But to have resources like the Flourish Group that provides more resources.
Right.
Now, you know what? At a health fair that we had here, I saw that there was this person who does this.
Yes.
Why don't you, I can't help you with that, but
here's a resource.
Here's a resource.
Right? Because that whole EAP, to go back and not to, be, downplaying EAPs, that's very much go find it yourself.
Yeah.
Versus here's something. So I have examples of this all the time. I get administrators from school districts. Just recently, somebody reached out and said, hey, there was a woman who did a mindfulness breakout session at our health fair. We have a teacher who wants to bring that into her classroom for the kids, right? Or one that's really common is we've often had a Medicare benefits consulting company have a table at our health fairs. And we all the time, we get people who are reaching out. They're like, hey, what was the name of that Medicare? We need them to come in and talk to some of our employees. Or so being able and, empowering leaders to have this information and be able to give it to employees. I mean, it's a huge thing, right? The employee walks away, it might be a piece of paper that says, hey, talk to this person at this company. But you've given them, they're walking away thinking, okay, well, they care that, I'm struggling, and then it's the follow-up and all that kind of stuff. But just having that safety at work is really part of the, mental health, obviously, but that career health.
Yeah. And, in that quadrant of those areas where we have health and physical activity, which we talked quite a bit about, and there's home cooking, so the food that we take in and ingest, making sure that it's healthy. But one of the things in that quadrant is home environment.
Mm-hmm.
How safe do we feel at home? How comfortable do we feel at home?
Right.
When I come home, do I feel at ease?
Mm-hmm.
Does my atmosphere make me feel comfortable? And all those are, I have a good example of that is my father would go throughout his day, he'd have a great day, drive home, be great, pull in the driveway, walk through the yard, open the door, and instantly get angry.
Oh my gosh.
As soon as he'd walk in that door, he did not understand why, but he would get angry as soon as he walked in that door. A little bit of hypnosis, he found out that it was a green glass candy jar that was on our table reminded him of a green glass candy jar that his mother had that caused all kinds of trauma when he was a kid.
Wow.
It just those little things, triggered him every time he came into that room. And so once they got rid of the green glass jar, then the anger went away.
Yeah.
That
is really interesting.
Yeah.
That it took some introspection and some hypnosis to bring that out. But it's so true. The things that can trigger us, like seeing something, after my mom passed, I couldn't look at pictures of her.
Yeah.
Like it was so, like I would get angry and, I put everything away, and then it makes you feel like you're a horrible monster that, like you're not mourning this person's death. But that's really interesting. And the home environment too is, so I'm really big on not only these types of wellness, but also the social determinants of health. And so home environment really comes into play here, as well as, physical activity and home cooking, right? When you look at certain populations that are living, they're not living in, out here where it's walkable, it's a safe neighborhood, it's walkable, you can do, you can get to a park or, whatever. They're living in places where they don't feel safe. They don't feel safe, but that's where they're living. And so I always try to be very mindful of when I go into a school or whatever and say, here are all the things that are making up your health. Well, if I am somebody who doesn't have a healthy grocery store nearby, doesn't have fresh produce readily available, has to take 2 buses to get to the grocery store to buy, we also have to be thinking about that. That's the home environment. That's do I not only feel safe and healthy in my home, but when I'm home, am I isolated because of where I live?
Right.
And isolation is, we're finding out is more and more, contributing to our mental health and the decline of mental health.
And that really brings us to the next topic, which is social life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is different than relationships.
It is.
It is.
And it can be very positive or it can be very toxic. And, I think we've all had those, social interactions, but it's in the workplace in particular, now it's very different, better, worse. I don't know. I'm not going to, state an opinion. I think it's really, everybody's different. But yeah, your social life's important. And I always tell people, look at when we talk about what you're consuming, right? Look at like a group text that you're in.
Yeah.
What's the mood of that text? Is everybody complaining? Is it gossipy? Is it negative? Is it unsupportive of people? Is it, because that's not a positive social
Right.
life, right? Not a positive social interaction. We need to find ways to put ourselves in those positive, social situations.
And I think some people, they think of social interaction as like, oh, I'm going to join a sports league.
Yeah.
Or I'm going to, I go to my cheers, the bar.
Yeah.
That's the way we think about social life. But in reality, there are other ways of engaging socially, like volunteering at a soup kitchen.
Mm-hmm.
Those kind of social activities really change our perspective. It diversifies what we are exposed to on a regular basis. So there's ways of engaging socially, even for those who don't like to engage socially.
Right.
Maybe you don't like to talk to people, but you can scoop.
Right. Right. You can pack boxes in a food pantry. Most of my social interactions these days are around volunteerism and nonprofits. So I'm the board president of Dress for Success. Going and spending 3 hours at their warehouse sorting clothing, I leave there, I'm tired, but it is like so fulfilling socially. One, you just there are things where you pick up and you're like, who wore this, right? Like you're just like some really interesting donations come in. There's people talking about, oh my gosh, look at this. I remember that store's not around any longer. Or, you just end up, and you may never see these people again because they're all volunteers, but you're there for a common purpose. So you might make friends out of this, right? Because you're both there because you believe in whatever that cause is. So it's really a good way to find people who are like-minded, it's, here, these are my people. And I'm not saying, don't, kind of get out of your comfort zone, but, volunteering at an animal shelter. Yeah. Those people are all there because they love animals.
Right.
And if that's who you are, what better way to meet people if that's what, if that's what your goal is. But yeah, so I want to touch on the idea of alcohol and being social. And I drink wine, so I'm not saying don't drink any alcohol, but using it as a way to be social, right? I think that is so prevalent, right? I can't be, let my hair down until I have 2 glasses of wine. I can't be social. I'm not interesting unless I have a couple of glasses of wine, and I think that's really dangerous because, it's relying on something that, is one, not healthy. We'll just say that because I try to be very careful about making judgments on food and things like that. Everybody, is doing the best they can, but alcohol, we know it's not healthy.
Well, it's referred to as social lubrication.
Yes, right.
There are things in life in which do or can help us, alcohol at a wedding. There are times where things can be used to help with celebration,
right,
liberation, all of those things. So, there's, and I don't drink, but that being said, unfortunately in today's world it's become a crutch. And that's when you are dependent on alcohol to socialize. Right. That's when it's a problem.
Right. And we've made it, I'm sure you've experienced this when you say, oh, no thanks, I don't drink. Immediately, people ask, they look at you like, what? Yeah. It's so not the norm. And I think we're getting better. I think, restaurants are being better with giving you options other than club soda with a splash of cranberry, right? Yeah. They're coming up with creative, non-alcoholic drinks and things like that. But I have friends who don't drink, and it's not because they have an addiction issue. They just choose not to drink. They don't like how they feel. They feel like they have better sleep, and all sorts of things. But we are, as a society, we're not immediately like, oh, okay, or not even asking.
The funny, I will say the way not drinking impacts my life the most is in the dating world.
Oh.
Believe it or not.
Yeah.
It's hard for someone to picture what life is like with someone who is not drinking. And for me, it's a big spiritual part of my spiritual life.
Right.
And, I don't have any qualms with anybody drinking around me.
Right.
I also had some surgery, and whenever I drink, it does bad things to my body.
Yeah.
But that's me.
Right.
Right? That's the path that I'm on.
Right.
So, alcohol, we could talk about it.
Yeah. We could.
Yeah. And we touched on relationships. Again, that's, for me, really coaching around relationships primarily is boundaries.
Yeah.
Coaching around boundaries.
Oh, yeah.
And that's, there's a lot of components to that, but
yeah.
How do we manage our boundaries? How do we manage someone else's?
Especially at work. It's very difficult for people to feel confident. So confidence, communication, and maintenance are the three things that are the biggest challenges to boundary setting, right? I don't feel like I can say to my boss, I can't take on any more work, right? I'm setting a boundary. I'm not going to work on the weekends. I'm not going to answer email after 9 p.m. Once I set that, so I've got the confidence, I've come to the table and said, I'm not going to do this, or getting ready to say that, it's communicating it, right? You're like, how do I do this? Still communicate, I like my job, I'm going to do my work, how do I communicate it? And then how do I stick to it? Because that's probably the biggest challenge, because people will be like, sure, boundary, got it. And then the very next day, they're like, hey, could you help me out with this? I always talk about the sneaky ways that people get to, kind of bust your boundaries. And one of them is like complimenting you. Yeah. You're so good at this. You always come through. You're amazing at this. Can't you just, can you just do this? Because I know you're going to do it better than so-and-so. But yeah, boundaries I do a lot of workshops on boundaries, and people we actually do role playing. Yeah. Because I'm like, you have to have this script in your mind, because it's not going to be an easy conversation. So how are you preparing yourself for it? How are you anticipating what the response is going to be so that you can prepare, right? Because that they are going to push your buttons. They know which way to come at you. And maybe they are being complimentary. Yeah. But at the end of the day, it's your boundary, and maintaining it is important.
I think because I have a ton to talk about when it comes to boundaries, so maybe that could be a whole session for us.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because boundaries cause tension. Mm-hmm. And if they didn't, then countries would not go to war. Right. You wouldn't need a boundary. Right. There's a reason that you need this. It's a situation that needs to be changed. Yeah. It's we could do a whole. I love talking about boundaries, because it's not the people you think are really good at setting boundaries. Right. Like, people often think because I'm very extroverted and I'm direct, that you must be great at setting boundaries. Most of the time, yeah. But it's sometimes it's the quiet introvert that's really good at it, right? They say their piece and they stand their ground. Yeah. So. There's a game that I play with clients and in groups called the yes/no game, where you have a partner and the partner asks you questions for 3 minutes. And you have to say yes to everything, no matter what it is that they ask. Okay. And then they ask you questions for another 3 minutes, and you have to say no to everything that they ask, no matter whether you want to do it or not. And then you do 3 minutes of them asking you questions you have to answer honestly. And
Are they all the same questions?
It doesn't matter.
Oh, okay.
Just-
I thought maybe that was like a
it's
list
the
of questions.
Act of saying yes repeatedly, the act of saying no repeatedly, and then the act of answering honestly is so eye-opening
Yeah.
to so many people. Because what does it feel to say no? What does it feel to say no and mean it? What does it feel to say no and not mean it?
Right.
What does it feel to say yes and mean it? And what does it feel to say
We're going
yes
to do
and
that
not?
game. We're going to do the game.
We're going to do the game.
We're going to do that game. That's
Yeah.
really cool. I want to take that and use that because it is difficult to say no.
Yeah.
Especially when it's family, right? Family, close friends. Work is one thing, and it is difficult. But I think once you kind of get to a point where you're not, I always say, don't just bring the problem.
Yeah.
Bring a solution,
Yeah.
right? Like as best you can. I can't do this, but here's what I think we could do to still
Yeah.
make it happen. But it's like family.
Yeah.
Family and boundaries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's where it all starts.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then finally, we have probably what I think is the most important one, and that's joy.
Yeah.
And the one thing that I'll say about joy is joy and happiness are two different things.
Mm-hmm.
Happiness is something that happens because someone did something nice for us.
Mm-hmm.
I give you flowers.
Yeah.
You feel happy.
Yeah.
Right? So happiness is very contingent on our outside world.
Mm-hmm.
Joy is all contingent on our inside world.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody can take joy away from us if we truly have it. So how do we incorporate joy into our lives, and what does that look like? And it's its own separate pie piece, but yet it is connected to every single other one.
Right, because my joy is home cooking.
Yeah.
I love to cook. It brings me joy. Like I love to see people loving what I've made, or it's just I love that. That's the love language or whatever.
Yeah.
The same is true for optimism and positivity. So optimism, like people think, oh, if she's super positive, she's optimistic. Optimism is not just being positive. It's like believing that things can and will be better. Believing in yourself that you can make things better, or that you can succeed, or your team can succeed. Where positivity is sometimes just like, this is great, and we're just like, let's keep everybody happy, right? It's very similar to happiness, and that distinction. But I always think of optimism that way too, because people will say, oh, she's, look at her with all of her optimism. And I'm like, no, optimism is different. It's a feeling, right?
Yeah.
It's knowing confidently that I can do this.
Yeah.
I'm optimistic, in the future.
And positivity can be faked.
Mm-hmm.
Optimism can be.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, people can say that's why they call it toxic positivity, right? Because you're like, I'm fine, everything's fine, and it's not. Yeah. And you can always tell.
Well, Nikki, thank you for another great podcast.
Yes, we're both rooted and flourishing.
Rooted and flourishing. Yeah.
I love this.
It was a great conversation.
Yeah, I like this. We should we'll have like show notes or something, maybe as part of it. We can put the wheel, and people can kind of see that.
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe there's like some more information there. I'm making this up. I don't know if we can do that or not.
No, we absolutely can.
I'm like, how about this?
Yeah. No, for sure.
Yeah. All right.
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
And I'm looking forward to hearing what our next podcast is going to be.
Yeah.
And we'll see you all later.
Yeah. See ya.